with Mayor Steve Noble, who has agreed to come into a live stream with the Daily Freeman, and we appreciate that. And we have some questions that were sent in by residents and readers, and we will. My name is Paul Kirby, and I'm a reporter here covering Kingston. And we will ask questions of our own. But Steve, if you want to open it up with a volley, feel free to do so.
Great. Well, thank you, Paul. And, I want to thank the Daily Freeman for your opportunity to come on again this year. It's always great to be able to have local media that's interested in wanting to, hear what's going on, and also the fact that you give your listeners and readers an opportunity to ask questions. I just want to thank you for that. Really great things are happening in the city. Many people had the opportunity to hear my State of the City speech this past week. And I'm really proud and humbled every day when I come to work to be able to do this. Kingston's a great city. It's a city that, as you know, I was born and raised in, and never knew that I'd become the mayor one day. And so to be able to look back at yet another year, in the record books for Kingston, and to be able to see and recognize the ability to be able to have a city that's thriving in the waterfront and Midtown and Uptown, but yet we have many challenges that we're trying to tackle. And so for me, it's something that has been exciting, and I'm really ready to look forward to 2019. We've got a big year ahead of us. Lots of projects going on, and I think, as I said during my State of the City, is that we have a lot to look forward to as we go this upcoming year.
Yeah, and you mentioned the projects. I mean, you have a slew of things. In the fire, right? Big ones. Big project, Kingstonian, Alms House, Cedar Street project. And just a bunch of things in the fire. It's been my experience, and I know you've been around for a while too, that even small projects take a long time to get done. I mean, the trail, 1.5 miles was a concept like 7 years ago, as I recall.
Yeah.
And still, that's not completed. So you talk about 2019, what we're going to do, but you got all these projects that are probably going to take more than a year to complete. I'm just guessing, just through experience.
Yeah.
So that's got people guessing.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we've tried to do, and I think what we've tried to give the public information about, is that we try to put out timelines for folks. And so there are many projects that are on the drawing board that we know aren't going to get done this year. But the projects that we're talking about now, we believe are going to get done. And so I think it's important for us as we look at these projects, is that many of the grants that we're writing, many of the big capital projects, you've got to be in it every year because they take 5, 6, 7 years, often from the first time you think about it to when they actually get done.
Yes.
But we've got projects now. Even just looking at the Energy Square project, that was dreamed of again back in 2012, 2013, and now we're all the way to construction. But it takes time. But so our goal is to be able to just educate residents, and so there's a whole section on our website called Kingston on the Move, and it lists every project. It lists when what stage of the project they're in, just to kind of give people an idea when they should expect some of this.
I guess I'm not being direct enough.
Yeah.
You want to oversee these. You want to see these projects, all of them, to completion.
I would like to.
But this is your last year in office.
Yeah. And so one of the things that, you guys stay tuned. We'll be making an announcement very soon as to whether I'm interested in running for re-election.
Well, I'm asking you right now.
Yeah, we'll let you know. We'll let you know soon.
Right. I know I asked you already.
Yeah, we'll let you know soon. Yeah. But the one thing I will say is that, over the course of the last couple of weeks, with everything happening with the county executive, I did get lots of calls and lots of messages from folks asking if I would be interested.
I was going to ask you that,
and throwing my hat in the ring. And what I told them is that there's a lot more work to be done in Kingston in 2019, and that I am happy to do that work. And at this point, I'm not throwing my hat in the ring for county executive.
And that's on my list,
Yeah.
but I mean, I'm gonna go off the
Yes,
list as you
that's-
bring things up,
Yeah.
but, was it members of the Democratic Committee, Ulster County Democratic Committee that asked you if you were interested in running?
No, actually, I didn't get,
No.
it's been mostly residents, constituents, that,
Okay.
recognized, the close working relationship that I had, with the county executive, and that, the types of projects that are happening in the county, many of them are happening in Kingston or benefiting Kingston. And
Yes.
they wanted to just, say that, because of my knowledge of all of those, it may make sense, but, I just.
For Kingston residents in particular, to have a guy in the county executive seat, because that hasn't happened yet
No.
in the 10 years that it exists.
No.
Okay.
And so, but I do think that, for me, we've got so much more work to do here still.
So do you think when you're being asked this, to see if you're interested in it, and I guess I know you don't run the county, but as your perspective, do you think Ulster County, Frank Cardinelli, during the Juan Figueroa election, told me that Ulster County is now an official progressive Democrat place. Do you think that a progressive, and some of them have already come out and said they're interested in running, and in fact expressed already progressive ideas, something that you might even do. Do you think Ulster County is ready for that?
I think one of the things that it's, for all of the candidates that decide to run for, county executive is that there are so many issues that, kind of come up in the county that are extremely important. I do, with many of the Democrats have very progressive ideas. But when you look at what the role of executive leadership is and executive government functions, it's also really important for us to understand how to manage, major infrastructure projects, how to manage major budgets. And so I think it's good to have progressive ideas, but I also think that, as I've said to people,
I mean, you've done it.
There's no Democratic or
Yeah.
Republican way to fill a pothole. And
Right.
the role of county
Right.
executive is, believe it or not, they've got a whole lot of county roads to fill potholes
Yeah.
in, just like I do.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's one of the things that it
But
really.
you've been able to do both. I mean,
Yeah,
you live your personal life
Yeah.
in an environmentalist way, and
Yeah.
you have done that in the city with the electric charges, the car.
Yeah, and I think Mike has too, right?
Yeah.
I think the county executive has been able to do that, and so I think that that's. But he also has been able to deal with issues in towns like Hardenburg and Plattekill and Lloyd, and areas that may not be considered, the enrollment numbers may be different than Kingston, for
Right.
instance.
Yes. Okay. So, you talk a lot about housing, I guess, in your state of the city address, for the policy that you're trying to policy that you're trying to adopt. And one of the questions, I guess, sort of goes to that, and that this person is wondering why and the rentals are not what would be considered, at least at cheap ends, affordable. And that why is it that these rents have to be so high at this particular place? Cheap,
So I think one of the, as different projects have developed in Kingston over the years, we've been trying to build a mix of housing. There are single family homes that sell for $250,000 in Kingston. There's single family homes that sell for $100,000 in Kingston. And, I think that's a good thing. It gives people from all different income levels the ability to have home ownership. And I feel the same way about rental housing. We really need all different types. The Energy Square project that we talked about before, that's building, affordable, lower income housing.
there's a lot of that.
There
in the
is.
city.
But we also, we need more, I feel. But we also need a good mix of nicer, more,
Market rate type of thing.
market rate housing. And those, for the Kingstonian, for instance, at this point, a one bedroom, they had suggested, I believe, at one of the public meetings would be,
1,200.
around $1,200, $1,250 a month. And
Yeah.
if you look at rental rates now in Kingston, that's not that outside of the current
Of a
rates
market rate.
of any. I mean, except
Well, the
for,
Rubco apartments are a lot cheaper.
yeah,
than
but
that.
I mean, just a regular apartment that
Yeah.
you may rent in your basement to
Yeah.
somebody,
Yes,
it's
that's what I
pretty
meant.
similar. And so I think that we do need more of that as well. And so I think that that's a mix that we're going to try to find here in Kingston. And I think we just need to make sure to build more housing.
But the mix, if I can interrupt,
Yeah.
but the mix is not quite in Uptown. I mean, Uptown is kind of becoming out of range for like in the terms of affordable housing.
Yeah, obviously Uptown is a very small space, and so most of Uptown has already been somewhat built out. But you've got everything from Dutch Village, which is again relatively affordable senior housing, to the Stuyvesant building, which is right in the heart of Uptown, which is a low income. Kirkland also is low income apartments, and so I think it's just what we do have Uptown is a lot of owner occupied rental apartments, and those are ones where it is difficult to have some of these larger affordable housing units work. And that's why we think that the land bank is really, really important for us, because in neighborhoods like Uptown, we have a lot of single family homes still. And I think it's important for us to make sure that home prices don't skyrocket and leave a whole section of our community without the ability to get a mortgage to buy a house. And so by buying and transferring these houses to the land bank and being able to renovate them and to be able to do it citywide. One of the first houses that the land bank is working on is a house at 248 Main Street, which is in a relatively, more higher housing price neighborhood.
Right.
And so yet we're going to try to put these new, more affordable units in that neighborhood and other neighborhoods just like it.
And you've heard this in the past because you've been around a long time, that even with Democrats, I would say in the past, Democrat mayors as well as common council members, that the city of Kingston has done its share of providing for affordable housing. Thousands of units, actually, when you think about the Kingston Housing Authority and Rucco, and then some other Section 8 landlords all over the city. And that communities outside of Kingston need to do their part. What do you think? You think they ought to pitch in too?
I do think that, and I think we've seen that. I think we've seen more units going up in Woodstock and Esopus and town of Ulster have starting to build more of those types of units. But one of the things that I think we all struggle with is that populations often need access to services, grocery stores, hairdressers.
Well, people have cars.
Yeah. And so, we do want to be able to, spread it around. But I do think that for Kingston to be successful and to help support all of our small businesses, and we want density. So I think Kingston can become more dense. And that's why one of the things that we talked about in my State of the City was smart growth, because smart growth is all about, building up in our cities. And, I'd rather have an affordable housing complex be built here in Kingston in a city than have one built out on a farm field somewhere else in Ulster County that was previously, providing us food.
Right. Oh, okay. So anyway, okay, let's just go on to another topic. This is some sort of political in a way. You again have been around in the city and have observed mayors in the past in interaction with the common council. It's not always been pleasant. There's been a rough and tumble. There's been, nasty language used back and forth, but there was a certain check and balance from the council to the mayor's office. Yeah. It doesn't seem to be that way anymore. That everybody seems to be in lockstep. Do you think that's healthy?
What I don't believe that everybody, is, just going along with me because we all may be from the same political party. I think
the same, like-minded.
Yeah, well, I think that, and what I think is important is the like-minded attitude that folks have is an attitude of, let's make sure that we get all of our questions answered. Let's make sure that we're meeting the needs of our constituents, and let's not make it political. And so, if there's a disagreement between a council member and I, unfortunately, Paul, we don't run to the Freeman and air that disagreement on the front page of the Freeman like maybe my predecessors over the years.
But we don't even see it at your predecessors in the common council, they'd have arguments right there in the open public. We didn't have to really, get the calls. I mean, we did, but you saw it at committee meetings, at common council meetings, going back and forth. So it wasn't them just picking up the phone and calling me. Although I never minded that. But But we sort of read out in the open. Now, Ariel, she goes, to all of
Mhm.
me, and she tells me there's none of that.
Well, and I think it's one of the issues that we find are that it's issue based. Like we can have all of our Democrats, we may not always be on the same page on every issue. So everything from the sanctuary cities resolution to some of the other resolutions. Not all the council members were completely on board, especially maybe not initially. But once they were able to hear from their constituents, and I think that that's the thing is that all of our council members listen to their constituents, and they're hearing the same message. And so maybe our constituency is changing from prior administrations and prior councils.
That's definitive.
And with that comes similar attitudes of the constituencies. And so, I really do believe that, our council members are doing a good job of representing their council, their constituents. They're not just doing what I want to do. I can assure you that.
Okay. And one thing there was a little bit of a dust up over was your suggestion for a raise last year. There was a little disagreement with that. Do you think that was a mistake for you to do?
No, I think it's I've never shied away from asking tough questions or having discussions about issues that are sensitive, whether it's been parking or affordable housing. We've kind of just jumped right in, and I think that it is important for the Common Council as the folks who set that type of figure to really take into consideration salaries of both their elected official positions and the mayor's office. And I think that in the end, we were able to have a good discussion about it, and I think that discussion will continue this year. And I do think that.
But if you had to do it again, you'd do it.
Yeah, I believe strongly that it was important to bring up the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a question from a person.
Yeah.
You state that your State of the City message Tuesday evening revealed that there were 3 electric vehicle charging stations installed in our municipal parking lots. I mean, you said that not just in the state of thing, but in the past.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Do you know how much they are utilized? Why is it necessary to install 2 additional charging stations in 2019?
Sure. So, one of the things that we've seen, countywide, are more and more people purchasing electric vehicles. Obviously, the county executive has been on the forefront of getting these all over. Almost every county building has them now, and they've seen widespread use. And so for Kingston, we haven't had any. And so one of the things that we did was put 2 of them down in our busiest tourist area because many people are coming off the thruway, wanting to find a spot to plug in, and there was nowhere in the waterfront for them to do so. And the other place was in Midtown, and we also didn't have one in Midtown. So, we feel like they're really important. They do get use. They've only been installed for a couple of months, and so we don't have like a year report record yet of them. But they how many? But we're able. But we're able to track it, and so we do know, how many people use them, how many kind of sessions that occur.
Yeah.
So it's really good, and if you drive by, you will see people plugging in, and we think it's a way to be able to put our a good green foot forward. Now, people that are using gasoline in our neighborhoods, and it's a good thing, I believe.
And the actual usage for these things is paid for by the state, right?
Yeah, and
is that right?
Yeah, so as part of a grant, we were able to install all 3 of them at no cost to the city, and then also for the first 2 years, I believe it is, the electricity costs are paid for by the grant, and the utility costs on average for one of these for a whole year is about $20.
$20 in total?
Yeah, per unit.
Per unit, so it's 20. Okay, so it's it's not
it's not a lot of money.
Yeah,
and so that's why
so why not?
That's why people buy electric vehicles, because the cost of fuel is so small.
And $20 is paid for by the state.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Right.
The amount of record keeping that we have to do to be able to just get that reimbursement is a little crazy.
Oh, is it?
So, but we're doing it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. let's see, let's get another one.
Yeah.
If I can find one. Okay, here's one. So in your state of the city outline handout, your second point is growing fund balance, right? Can you compare what our unappropriated fund balance was when you took office to what it is today, and why you see it growing in 2019? So first explain to those who might know, what is a fund balance? It's sort of a money on the side, so sometimes government use it to reduce the tax rate for a particular year, and sometimes they just keep it.
Yeah, and so it's this kind of
yes.
a state mandated thing to be able to have a fund balance,
Yes.
And you have to have a certain percentage. And so the city has a policy that between 10 and 13% of the city's general fund. So if our general fund ends up being, $40 million,
Yes.
we have to have,
Which is about what it is.
yeah, we have to have a certain percentage, the 10 to 13% of the fund balance in there. So basically $4 or $5 million, that type of thing.
That's what it is now.
Yeah. And so that number over the years has been used, especially back in the lean years, back in, the late 2000s when, the economy was tanking. There was really almost no
Early
money.
2000s.
Yeah. Or 2007, 8, 9,
Yeah.
whenever that financial crisis was.
Yeah.
The fund balance has kind of gone, up and gone down. And one of the things that we've been doing since I took office is that the fund balance has grown a little bit each year to the point where last year and the year before, we were just above the city's policy. So basically, we were above the 13%, which means we had a little bit more money in our piggy bank than we really should based on our policy.
And so more than that 13%.
Correct. And so what we did.
So what is that? What's the number? 5 million? Is it?
I don't know what the number is.
Oh,
It's
okay.
around there.
Yeah.
And so then what we do is we then pay off long-term or short-term debt.
Yes.
We finance some vehicles. Instead of financing vehicles, we buy them outright, which saves us on some of that other debt that we have. And so it's been a good policy for the city. And how you have fund balance is that you're able to go ahead and as you go over the budget over the year, you may have costs that are less than you anticipated. You may have more revenues come in than you anticipated. And so the money then gets put in the fund balance so that it's able to help.
It is used
that.
as well to pay for raises, isn't it?
And so,
times.
yeah, and so they've gone when they've settled contracts into the fund balance to be able to use that as well. We've been trying to put all of our raised money as best we can into the contingency fund, which is another separate fund. But yeah, so we feel like we've been managing the fund balance very well, and we've been making really good long-term decisions on how to do that. And it all comes down to good budgeting. And our comptroller John Toohey has really done a great job.
Been around a while.
He has, and he's been really doing a good job at making sure that we are, not only meeting our budget expectations, but also tracking all of these policies, procedures.
Okay, let's see if we got another one. While I'm looking for it, I'll just ask another thing. I think maybe I missed it, but there was not much discussion, I believe, and it could be wrong, because maybe I missed it. But in your state of the city address about the plummeting crime rate in the city. I mean, it's not only in Kingston; it's all over. But in Kingston, it's extremely significant in the past 10, 11 years, and yet there are people that are around will say Kingston is not a safe city. It's filled with crime, and I would never move there. But the statistics don't bear that out. And I know you've had incidents involving police, of which turn out to be the 21 taser thing turned out to be twice. And the Kingston police have, over the 100 years that they existed, have a pretty successful rate on harming suspects that no one that in its history has been actually killed.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to say something about
Sure.
that?
You know,
Yeah.
I think one of the things that, we've got great men and women that work each and every day to help keep us safe. And it is true that, over the last decade, our crime rate has dropped from over 1,200, part one crimes down to, just over 500 part one crimes. And so that's a huge improvement. And, a big credit goes to the men and women of the police department and the partnerships that we've developed with the sheriff's department and the town of Ulster Police Department. We've got great working relationships. And I think that now, we've really tried to, shift our attention to quality of life issues. And I think that we obviously still know that there are too many drugs in our community. There are still too many people that play with handguns, in communities like ours. And we really are trying to shift our attention to really going after the quality of life crimes. I think that going forward, I'm not sure how much more we're going to be able to really do to change those part one crime numbers. I would expect that, we're probably going to level off, and that 500 number is probably going to go up some years, a few, and go down a few.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to stay about the same, because a lot of the times these crimes are happening from people that are not from within our community. They're coming in from outside of our community, committing a crime, getting arrested, but they weren't from here. The crime isn't being generated here.
300 or so of that 500 number, I think it was 350 actually, are larcenies from cars.
So we want people to lock their cars. That's
that would get that number down.
But there's an impression from I think especially from minority communities that there's an inequity on police enforcement.
One of the things that our police department has done over the years, is they've really been trying to focus crime, work in the areas where crime is being committed or where reports of crime are coming in from. And so, we do have more personnel working in some of our lower income neighborhoods than we do in some of our other neighborhoods, just based on where the crime. But a lot of it also is related to density. Some parts of Kingston, where you have big lots and you only have one house, every couple hundred feet or so, the rates of crime there are so much different than when you have apartment buildings where you have 10 people living in a building and you have 10 of those buildings all next to each other. You just have more people. And so crime rates go up. And so we have to have more resources in those neighborhoods. And so that's what we've been trying to do. But I think we were also making sure that we are, as I mentioned in my State of the City, making sure all of our policies and procedures are as best as they can be. And so one of the things that have been really successful with is our body camera program. All of our police officers now have body cameras, and it's really assisted the department in supervising those employees, but also being able to help make sure that the public knows that, everything is being recorded now. And that really has helped give people a sense of trust back with the police department.
And the police themselves, right? Because, sometimes what they're doing, if it's being recorded, they would claim, I did the right thing. I didn't do anything wrong. And these cameras can show that maybe in some cases they didn't, right? So it
People
helps
make
them
mistakes.
as well.
Yeah.
This one I'll ask. It's kind of a statement more than a question, but I'm going to do it anyway. So anyway, the question is, doesn't your substantial addition of non-mandated programs and related staffing costs and benefits increase the burden on existing city residents, homeowners, and businesses, so things are more unaffordable for them? I guess the question here is talking about people that you have hired, additional positions that you have installed at the city. How does this benefit the city and this question? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that's really important for us is that, we are trying to put resources in the right places. And over time, through attrition and through other projects, grant funding, we've been able to bring in new employees, create new positions. I think one of the things that for the reader to keep in mind is that since I took office in 2016, the amount of funds that we've requested from taxpayers, the tax levy, has been the same. Yeah. And so, we haven't raised taxes, and we've been able to add new positions because we've, if you look at the total number of, full-time equivalent employees in the city, it's been stable over the last, 3 or 4 years, because we've just been changing the way we fund things. And so since then, we've created a director of communications, we've created a director of arts and cultural affairs, we've created a director of health and wellness, we're adding a grant manager, we're adding some project staff, and those positions, and
something with grants managers. You added that one. There was something else.
Yeah. And so that,
Kirsten.
Yeah,
is
so,
going to
right.
a new.
yes, we
position.
created a whole new department.
Yes.
We also have, an environmental and sustainability coordinator now. And so, those are all positions that, are vital to be able to kind of create, what I think is the good quality of life, to be able to attract people to live here, to work here, to bring jobs in. And we've been able to do it all without costing more
And
money.
would you say that, particularly with the grants manager position, you were able to, or that office, the person, was able to successfully obtain a $10 million grant for in one place?
Yeah,
And so these grant writer positions wind up paying for themselves in many different ways, right? Particularly with this $10 million downtown.
Yeah, and so we were very successful in working with the governor's office and being chosen for that. And one of the things that I think makes that program unique is that we actually the grant application was relatively easy. It's only like a couple of pages, but we had to actually go and present. And so I got to invite a team of community members to go along with me to really be able to showcase exactly why Kingston was the right community. But one of the things that I did early on with all of these grants is that I knew that it would help fund staff, but it also has helped really fund a lot of infrastructure. But we also don't have just one person doing it. And so, in environmental, we've got the environmental grants, and my director there is writing that, and for the infrastructure grants and the engineering department's helping, and we really have tried to make sure that the expertise that exists is then channeled into asking for funds, because they know how to tell the story the best. And we've been really, the fact I said it in my State of the City, when I took office, I had, we had 8.8 million that we were managing, and now we have 36.3 million. And that's a huge effort, but I think it's now going to help pay off. And as you said, they're going to take a while.
You have said that now the time is to
Yep.
get it done. I go, okay, now we got the money, but it's no good just getting the money. You got to get it done, right?
And that's why, with Beat Stadium, with some of these other projects, I talk about these projects every day now, and that's we're really focused on 2019 is the year that we're starting some of these projects, but we do have a lot more work to do.
You mentioned that you are not afraid of facing the hard issues. There has been a few hard issues, and I know I've asked you about these, on several different occasions. But since you're here, the Alms House has been a controversial project from the very beginning and remains to be so. The Irish Cultural Center has been a controversial project and remains to be so even at this point. I think I'm going to guess, I think I'm going to know what you're going to say about them, but because they are, outstanding out there and get a lot of attention from both, city officials like the planning board, has to re-examine the whole Irish Cultural Center thing again. The Alms House thing winds up, running through the court system. Where do you stand on these two?
And I think you set it up perfectly, because the exact reason why I believe that a mayor like myself, who appoint planning board members, who appoint zoning board members, really needs to be very careful and how they weigh in on these types of projects, because as you can see, they're both in litigation. And so, having mayors comment on, whether they want something like this in particular built or not built, or how they want it built, really comes back to hurt the city and hurt the residents, in some of these lawsuits. And so, as I've continued to say, because they're all in litigation and have the potential for litigation, I'm not going to comment. But in general, as I said, I think that heritage tourism and celebrating our heritage, I think looking at the Hudson River Maritime Museum is a great example of when a community comes together behind a concept, it can really make a huge difference. And the
Okay, so
maritime,
while you cannot
Yeah.
comment specifically on this project, you
Yeah.
would say that, I mean, you talk about affordable housing, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You just can't, you can't predict, you're saying you can't comment on this particular project.
Mhm.
And then you just said that celebrating your heritage is a good thing.
Yeah.
So I guess you would agree that having an Irish cultural center or a center that celebrates or honors or reflects Irish culture is a good thing.
Yep. And as the comprehensive plan lays out, I'm not the only one. Those types of projects are in our comprehensive plan, that I signed into law back in 2016, and it really clearly states that that type of are the types of developments. We need more affordable housing. We need more housing specifically for seniors, and we also want to be able to help support
There's a lot
cultural
of units.
tourism.
You got a lot of units, and I know I'm going back to this,
Yeah.
but the city has a lot of affordable housing units within its boundaries.
Yeah, but yeah,
I mean, 1,200 are just for Kingston Housing Authority alone, and Rupco continues its creation of these things at very affordable rates for those who. It's not for me. They're not, for the moderate income people are not going to get into these places.
But
you really got to
as
have
you
a
get
low
older,
income.
right? But as you
Yes.
get older, especially for seniors, I mean, if you look at the Kingston Housing Authority or some of our senior programs, literally the wait lists are like
The
2
waiting
years.
list. Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah, I know.
And if you're ready to move into an apartment that costs $600 a month,
Yes.
as you retire from here someday,
Yes.
you shouldn't have to wait 2 years. You lived here, given your whole
Yes.
life here, and you shouldn't have to move out of the city that you love because
find
you
a
can't
place.
find a place that's affordable for a senior on a fixed income. And I think that that's one of the issues that I have is that, they're all different types of affordable housing, but, there still are huge segments of the population that live here now that need assistance.
I
and
believe Rupco has waiting lists as well.
they do.
Yeah.
Long waiting lists,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
But what does that say? I mean, we talk about economic development, I guess, and job creation in the city. We saw a couple of things pop up like that. The Riverhawk thing at the Kingston Business Park. Some things going in Scott Dutton's building. But when we talk about the waiting list to get into these affordable housing projects, that means there's a lot of people who can't afford to live in Kingston unless they live in an affordable housing project. You think your administration is doing enough to create jobs here?
Yeah, I think that's, we have focused, obviously, we've gone away from let's try to land a new IBM to move to Kingston because we don't have the land, we don't have the space.
Well, the business part.
Yeah, and so one of the things that, we have been working with the Kingston Local Development Corporation on is to expand the marketing and the availability. You guys will see that come out shortly. We've all new brochures and pamphlets and a brand new website that's up now to be able to help market the business park because we do have that opportunity. But one of the things that we're seeing is that large businesses are only willing to come to areas like this if the employees are here already. Most people don't truck in employees anymore.
Right.
They don't relocate employees. They generally want to look around and say, look, do I have qualified professional people working or living in an area? And that's, I think, why we've spent so much of our
So
efforts.
why isn't there that in Kingston? Why are that not qualified workers not living here?
Well,
where
I think
the guy would say, hey,
right.
There's a lot of qualified people working in Kingston, let's move there.
And I think it's starting. And I think you gave some great examples of why that's starting to happen. I think that, with the community manufacturing solutions that moved up to the business park, they recognized that there was a contingent of textile workers that still live and work here. They may have worked for Wonderly's, they may have worked for some of the other. Yeah. And so we're there. And, I think you're seeing the same thing with the film industry. We've got talented film artists, producers living in the Hudson Valley. And now all of a sudden, at the Metro, we're building film and stage studios.
Yes.
We've got film productions here. But then you also have the tech industry. We've got a lot of tech people that have migrated to Kingston because it's a cool place to live. And now you've got the tech companies, opening up and working and hiring people, whether it's, there's dozens of tech companies uptown. that have moved
Small
in.
ones that
Small
hire
ones,
one, two
but
people.
That's going to be the future.
Yeah.
Like the future of Kingston is going to be the small micro businesses. I don't think that
I suppose so, but as you pointed out, the community solutions and there's,
Yeah,
you know,
there's still
Scott Dutton's building that has the woman making the dog leashes.
Yep.
I mean, they're hiring 40, 50 people all in one
Yeah.
clip.
Yeah, and again, in the business world, that's still considered small.
Yeah, it's small,
But that's the kind of business that we're going to see in Kingston. You know, the 7,800 employees that IBM had, that type of job is not going to come back to Kingston. But I do think that we're going to be able to continue to raise the quality of life for folks that are living here, and I think that that's an important thing for everybody.
an ongoing project, which, you know, many people will say, and this is probably the biggest employer in Ulster County, the hospitals, and definitely in Kingston. It is an ongoing issue about this expansion. I mean, it's slow in the making. I mean, and a lot of people, right, when they consider moving to a place, take into account the hospitals that are there, and there are two in Kingston. The progress they are making on this expansion seems to be slow moving. You worried about that?
You know, I've learned enough about the process by now that I'm not worried. I do believe that it is a bureaucratic process, unfortunately, because I think if you know, there weren't as many, you know, partners involved from Department of Health to, you know, the other state offices to Health Alliance to WMC Health, you know,
Yeah.
maybe it would have been a lot easier if there was just one partner to come in, build it, and be out. But
Yeah.
I do recognize that it's taking a long time, and but I do feel, you know, comfortable that the new hospital campus is going to meet the needs of both current and future residents, and you know, the fact that they're still committed to being able to create the medical village on Broadway and not having an empty
That's even
vacant.
further out.
But the commitment's there for
Yeah.
the money, and I think that that's, you know, as soon as they're able to vacate the building, you know, the fact that it's not going to sit empty as a big Goliath on Broadway, I think is the most critical piece of all of this. They could have just closed one hospital and
They could have.
boarded it up and said, you know what, we'll put it on the market and see
Yeah.
who takes. And
Yeah.
you know, that's a unique building to be able to try to get.
There is a change in leadership at Health Alliance, as you know. David Scopino resigning, or retiring, I should say. And the last guy, David Lundquist, left as well. And so now it's going to be somebody new. And this whole expansion plan really started way back under David Lundquist was suggesting it. Now you're going to have a new leadership in there. I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but there will be does that concern you at all? That the hospital doesn't seem to have a continuum of people.
You know, I think one of the things that, you know, change does happen, and I do believe that because of the merger with WMC Health, they are now, you know, running, you know, the system. Like that's, you know, this, and so, you know, there is stable leadership, you know, on WMC Health point of view. And what excites me is that, you know, when I heard that Dave was retiring, that they do have a commitment to still hire a local president of the hospital system. And,
Yeah, they do.
And I think that that's a good commitment to have, and that's a process that they're going to be going through over the next year, so that we still have a local contact person and someone who will oversee and manage, you know, this transition for us.
All right, we're getting there, right?
Did I get all your questions? Do you have
Yeah.
any more?
Is
'Cause,
Well,
is the burning of Kingston happening?
yeah.
so
Yeah. Okay.
I found out
There's one.
on Facebook that it wasn't, you know, but I do think that I've reached out to many of the key people, and I'm going to ask to pull a meeting together. And I still believe that, you know, our history is important, and I think that come October of this year, you know, we will have some events. Whether it's the same exact type of event or the same event that's happened every other year. You know, I still remember
Every year at one time, right?
yes, and I was at the first burning of Kingston,
Me
and
too.
you guys actually have a picture of me that Tanya took
That's right.
of me sitting in front of the bonfire with a little three-brim hat as a
I think I remember
as
that.
a 15-year-old.
Yes.
I was a high school volunteer who helped
How about
arrange
that?
the event, and
He was in high school.
yeah, so you have to pull that out of the archive, but
Yeah.
it's here somewhere.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that.
But so it means a lot to me, and so I do think we're going to get it figured out.
That's good. A little different New Year's Eve thing too, right?
Yeah, you know,
I mean,
it
a little more
rained.
family orientated.
Yeah, it rained, but we had a great crowd, and everybody was happy, and it was a great way to ring the new year, and we were still able to have fireworks, thankfully. So
The fireworks,
they went off.
they
Yeah,
did?
they did. Yeah.
Okay, you didn't think they would,
Well,
maybe because of the rain?
yeah.
I think that's good, right? Are we
Yeah.
good? Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I got it. Go ahead, wrap
no, I
it
just
up.
wanted to say thank you. You know, I think I mentioned it briefly in my State of the City, but with everything that's happening in the world, you know, and the bashing the media gets on a constant basis.
Yeah,
know,
do you think we're the enemy of the people?
I don't. And I think that, you know, you guys, I think that you guys play an important role. And I don't always agree with your reporting, and but I do think that it's critical to have a local paper that has the appropriate staffing to be able to follow up and
Appropriate staff.
yeah, you're not there yet. And
Yeah.
you need some, everybody needs more staffing.
Yes.
But I do think that everybody plays a critical role. So thank you guys for doing this.
All right, great. Well, thank you, Steve, for coming on in.
Yeah.
We'll be in touch.
And thank you everybody for watching. We'll have a story up soon.
All right.